All right, class, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about Chapter 5, the police subculture. And a lot of people say, well, what is that? What is the police subculture? Well, first of all, let's look at what culture is. We all should know, hopefully, that culture is a shared set of values, norms, and behaviors that form a particular way of life. That's basically a good definition, and that's the definition that comes straight out of your text. Now, moving on to what a subculture is. A subculture is a culture patterns that distinguishes some segment of society's population from the rest of that population. So it basically is setting forth a set of norms that one culture believes in, but yet another culture may not necessarily believe in, but recognizes. And then the police subculture. The text states this as the definition: the shared values and norms and the established patterns of behavior that are formed among police officers. So let's take a step back and talk about values, or excuse me, culture. A lot of people would look at culture as something that they believe in. For example, one of the cultural values that we all share, hopefully, is patriotism. Um, we all love America, or we wouldn't be here, hopefully. Then the subculture to that is, let's say, down in the South, we love sweet tea in the South. We love fried foods in the South. A subculture up north would be unsweet tea, and probably more seafood, uh, baked or grilled foods instead of fried foods, where we love that here in the South, don't we? I know I do. A police subculture would be some of the things that um, set police aside from others. And some of the things that affect that is such things as emotional expressions, street environment, some of the organizational factors from administration and the political elements. A couple of other agencies can also create that subculture, and the media also helps in that. Now, within that subculture, a lot of police officers take things kind of personally. Um, they want to have control. They want to have control over their domain, which is their territory. They become very suspicious. That is a good example of police subculture. As a police officer, do we always come into contact with people who are truthful with us every day? Absolutely not. So we become very suspicious of certain things that we probably should not become very suspicious of. Um, One of the things that was mentioned in the last unit, but I didn't go over in my lecture, and I probably should have, is the sixth sense. Um, Police officers create that sixth sense um, over time. What we like to refer to it as in the policing world is that gut feeling. If you have a gut feeling about something, then you better act on it, because 99.99% of the time, your gut is probably going to be right. So follow what your gut says, and um, make sure that you make good decisions based on that. Now, a couple of other things that, as police officers, we are like to be solitude. Basically, we like to be with other officers. We don't socialize very much with the other elements. That is one of our subcultures as officers, is that we um, socialize with other officers. We don't like to get outside the bounds of our what is referred to as our inner circle. That is one of the things that keeps us safe. We have a great brotherhood within the law enforcement community. And I'll go over a little bit more of that in the next slide. We also have an us versus them mentality. A lot of times officers will get so fixed on being within that circle of law enforcement that we create this us versus them mentality. Basically, it's us against the world. And everybody believes that we keep things secret, and to be honest with you, we do. Some things that if it were to get out in the public would cause a lot of chaos. A couple of things that would disrupt our everyday, our day-to-day operation. So we try to be secretive. We try to let as much information out as possible. But as officers, we have been trained to keep things within, compartmentalize and put things in a box and forget about it. That is one of the things that will make you go crazy within this business. Is compartmentalizing a bunch of things and not being able to talk to others. And another thing is that when we do talk, we talk to other officers who have not had much training in dealing with those emotional states. They've probably been through them, some of the things as well in their lives, and they don't know how to deal with it, much less talk to somebody else about it either. And then we also have a lot of isolation. Officers are not very public people. We want to stay to each other. We want to stay out of sight, out of mind when we're not at work. When we are at work, we take things very seriously, and you can kind of see a sense of change in the mood when someone's at work and when they're not at work. You can kind of tell the difference there. All right, this is kind of our symbol for law enforcement. This is the thin blue line. This is the line that officers hold every day, fighting and working with each other. We act as a family and a unit. We have to trust the person next to us. So therefore, we make bonds with people every day that we work with. We get into their lives, we get into their families' lives, and we become a family to each other. Now, a lot of folks say, oh, well, this police officer is not going to tell on that police officer. Well, there are many officers out there that will. And I'll give you an example of why that is. Back in the old days, yes, you could not get a police officer to tell on another police officer for what they'd done for nothing. That was the bond that kept the police departments together. Today, that is not so much. The family element is somewhat still there. The problem is everybody wants to climb the ladder. And if I know something on you that the higher ups don't know, then guess what? I'm probably going to tell it on you. That's just the way things work today. But when you work with law enforcement, when you work in the field, you have to trust the person next to you. A lot of folks say, well, women or minorities don't have any place in law enforcement. I totally disagree. I have one female. I would take her over anybody else in the law enforcement field to back me up or for me to back her up. She's just tough as dang nails, and I would much rather her going into a building than anybody else. So when you see this little symbol right here, just know that this represents the family of blue. In the law enforcement field, one of the things that I've always told everybody is we don't see black and white, all we see is blue. So once you get into the law enforcement field, hopefully this is something that you will take up and keep close to your chest, is this little symbol. And anytime that you start working with somebody, explain it to them if they don't know what it is, and let this be a symbol of hope for the next generation of cops that are coming up.